And then I'm very pleased to introduce Nikita and Trae from Pechersk International School. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Before we came on, I was saying to Tom what an absolute pleasure it is to join you guys today, and we're so thankful for this opportunity to talk a little bit about our experience in Kyiv over the last 2.5 years, with a special focus on some of the differences we've seen over the last particular year, and the focus is going to be on how the school is responding to that. So that's our goal for today. But and as Tom said, I'm Trae Holland. I'm the director of Pechersk School International, and we're joined also by Nikita, who is our communications manager, and Oya Yarmliuk, who is our development and fundraising specialist. She's so we've got quite the representatives from our team today. But yeah, with no further ado, Nikita, if you'd be kind enough, we'll just jump right in. Um, Real quickly, before we move into the meat of what we want to talk about today, we are entering our 30th year as a school. Pechersk School International has been a lead international school in this part of Europe for many years. It's an IB school with all three levels. It's the only one that has all three levels of the International Baccalaureate in Ukraine. I joined the school in August of 23. My work before coming to Ukraine, I'd been director of not an international school, but I was director of a school in Guatemala. And we served kids whose families pick garbage for a living. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is I remember when I was interviewing for the job to come to Ukraine, it was the only job I looked at. I loved our work in Guatemala, getting kids out of that dump, giving them an education, getting them a job, breaking that cycle of poverty. You got to see the real power of your work. I mean, literally and concretely every day. And I adored it, but it was a very violent place, many gangs and whatnot. The streets were a very dangerous place to be. But when the word of this job came to me through a friend, I felt that I was meant to apply for this job. And I can tell you now that it was the best decision I could have ever made. And I hope by the end of this presentation, I can impart to you all a sense of our experience, but also the achievements and just the community and what we've built here. Okay, Nikki, please. All right, so we need to kind of talk about the obvious element, of our experience here, and that's the conflict. And I think it really does help further our ability to communicate to you our experience is by looking at what's really happening to us. Kyiv is by no means the front line. I think a lot of times the news reports around the world kind of conflate the entire country as one. But even though we're not the front, we are attacked on a regular basis in Kyiv by both missiles and drones. And the other issues that we face in the city is a great deal of power outages. The Russians have gotten very effective at attacking infrastructure, mostly electricity, but also utilities. And so at this time, we're getting maybe 6 hours of power a day. And how we respond to that from a psychological standpoint, social emotional standpoint, very important part. But every once in a while, of course, the air defenses of the city, which are quite robust, incredibly effective, they're not perfect and cannot be. And we will have missiles and drones get through. And so, even though the mathematical probabilities are in one's favor in terms of being injured or killed, it still has a psychological impact on us. And as you see in the first image, when those missiles do strike, it's a reminder that what the Russians are about is that they're about terrorizing the population. That's the key. That's the strategy to get the Ukrainians to relent. Um, this next image, they like to attack at night. That's their favorite move. The point being that you can exhaust the population as well. During the particularly harsh nights, people come into school with 3 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep. Um, we all have stories of missiles and drones hitting closer to our particular houses or apartments. And you can see it like when we all come in after a particularly hard night. It's that community coming together and saying, "Are you okay? How was your night?" And it's kind of a mantra. And when someone is in a particularly hard hit part of the city, people are there for them. This campus is a safe space for us. It is a place where when we're here, given the protocols, the bomb shelters that we have, which I'll talk about in a bit, there's a psychological strength to being here. And yet, from time to time, something will happen that punctures that sense of safety. What you're looking at there on the right, we came in one morning and a tracer bullet had actually entered our auditorium and gone through two layers of roof, ricocheted off a wall, and then punctured, as you can see, the floor. Um, and this idea, we were also hit by another bullet a bit later. Um, it's this here. This lodged in the window ledge underneath my office, and again at night, so no one was in danger in the building. The reason I share that with you is, a lot of the work we do is making sure we're buttressing people, and these moments when our haven is damaged, it has a particularly acute impact on people's psychology and their sense of anxiety. A big part of what we do here is trauma-informed practice. It's a very large element of our school, both students and staff. And what that means is approaching all aspects of the school, curriculum, instruction, teacher development, from the standpoint of supporting them emotionally and making sure that all those elements are in place, embedded across the school, and that we're incessantly cognizant and focused on how people are dealing with trauma in our environment. Um, okay, Nikita, please. Yeah, this is something I wanted to share with you guys. On the left is a screenshot. One of the most important things that we face is sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation is our enemy. Over those of you who are familiar with research on sleep, if you go long enough without effective sleep, it starts to affect, all the neurological, assets that you have, whether it's memory, whether it's language retention. This is both true for students and teachers. I had a teacher come into my office last year, and she sat on my couch and she had tears in her eyes. And we began to talk. And she told me a story that she was in her class, and she was doing a presentation. She put it up on the screen, and the students raised their hand and they said, Miss So, we did this yesterday. Now, she played it off and said, "Oh, I was just testing you guys." And it was undermining her sense of self that she had forgotten that she'd already covered that material. And it might seem minor, but when you lose sleep long enough and your short-term memory starts to suffer and other aspects of your neurology starts to be negatively impacted, it has a spiraling effect with you. Who am I? What's wrong with me? Am I ever going to get my memory back? And of course, I comforted her and made sure that she remembered her training, which is sleep deprivation has these impacts. We do this a lot here. And to the right, I wanted to share a graph. If you look into 2024, before that, you see kind of a lower level of attacks, but something really dramatic starts happening. And as we go into the autumn of 2024, it's got a hockey stick effect. I've been here 2.5 years, and I can tell you when it moved, when it changed, it was palpable. Um, those of us who have been here long enough remember at the beginning of our time and when we reopened the campus in 24, we might have thought it was challenging then. We might have thought, oh, this is tough. That was nothing compared to what has happened in the interim, and after that. And as you can see, again, it has gone nothing but up, and that has real consequences for us. Back to what I said about sleep, about the anxiety in the community, the outages, the power itself. It's funny how an experience like this can embed within you an appreciation of things that before you might have taken for granted. Something as simple as flicking a light switch when you get home at night. A lot of our stoves and things are electric. So cooking, basic cooking, doing laundry. I mean, these really mundane, prosaic things about existence that are absolutely undermined by just not having power. And that affects psychology too, because a lack of light, especially in the winter as we are now, the days are shorter. There's no sun as I speak right now. And that all combines. It's a pretty toxic combination. You know? I want to talk about one particular strike. This was at the beginning of this school year. Literally, we had just returned back to school. Some of you might have seen this in the news. It made the news, I think, globally because both the British Council and the EU delegation's buildings were damaged by a missile. I want to point out to the right of the British Council is an apartment building. It's kind of light colored and it's just to the right. That building is where our athletic director lives with his wife and two, at that time, 6-month olds, twins, two girls, and kind of bringing this more to the intimate level of what some of these experiences are like. When that strike occurred, uh, our athletic director and his family were in the shelter. Now, that blast blew out his window and ransacked his apartment, debris, dust. I'm sharing this with you to kind of bring you in a little bit about the intimate threat that comes with some of these things. But what made it particularly extreme for him and his family is they were in the shelter and this blast blew off the door to the shelter. And this gentleman is not one for hyperbole. And he was emotional in my office and he was talking about he looked at his wife and the look on her face. He said he will never forget that for the rest of his life because the look that his wife had was we're dying at this moment as this hot wave of wind came in and sucked back from the sonic part of the blast. And to imagine being in that bunker with your two new children and in a split second thinking it's over. I have to tell you, when I met with him about this and talking to him about it, it'll always stay with me as a father as well. Okay, thank you. Next. Okay, a couple more facts for you, and then we'll get into how the community responds to these things. So we spend a lot of time in bunkers, mostly at night, but we do have sirens and alerts during the day. The Russians do attack during the day at times, but last school year, 8 to 10 hours of learning every month were lost. That's about 11 lessons. And remember, every single lesson, especially in an IB school, is critical. And that disruption with all the other cerebral elements that come with the stress of being here. One of the things about trauma, when the amygdala is firing up all the time, there are neurochemicals, cortisol, adrenaline that are being released into the bloodstream. Well, those things actually atrophy the language center, executive function, again, short-term memory. That's happening with trauma, and then you're losing learning on top of that. So it's important to keep in mind what's going on with the challenges these kids are learning. I mean, what they're experiencing just to learn in class. Next slide, please. This is one of our shelters. We set them up as classrooms for a reason, two major reasons. And before I continue with that, just this year, we've lost 69 hours in the shelter during the day, which is equivalent to about 24 lessons. So we've had more in this semester than we had all of last year. So things are getting more extreme as we go. Um, but okay, in the shelters, this was a photo taken as we were opening them up. But if this shelter now, if you saw it, there's color everywhere. There's posters on the wall. There's work from the students, exemplars. We have really worked hard to create a dynamic that when we go to the shelter, the kids feel comfortable. They feel it's a welcoming space. Learning continues, right? So there's the disruption to learning that continuing to learn in the shelters that at least addresses that. But there's a psychological element too. If a child is working with a book or hearing a book read to them in class and they retreat to the shelters and that book is still being read, there's a psychological power to that, like a continuity that we feel is really important for the kids as well. Teachers continue to work when they're in the shelters, and as you see to the right, the Russians they really love to attack at lunchtime. I'm sure that they're constantly thinking about how they can disrupt, how they can undermine, how they can really attack the psychological well-being of the population, and I think students particularly. They love to attack at the beginning of the school year. The first week is always hard because they're trying to, again, get into the minds of students as they're trying to just basically go to school. But we get food to the shelters when it's lunchtime. And I'm really proud of not only the lunchroom staff, the cafeteria staff, but also our teachers. It's a nonstop moment of gratitude to them, what these guys do to continue getting these kids educated and fed. Okay, so the three primary things we wanted to talk about today, and the question I asked myself with this incredible opportunity to just come and talk to you guys and just share some measure of what we see and what we feel here. I just wanted to try and break it down into a number of areas that I thought were the most primary, and these are the three that I arrived at with Nikita and Oya, and it's this resilience community, and really the feeling of not being alone, and the needs we have, and how we can continue to communicate to the world about those needs. And this is, again, we'll talk about this more later, but this is where CASE really comes in for us. But we'll start with resilience. This word, I feel, and this is not a criticism, but I feel it's kind of a cliche. It's everywhere. Like people use this term all the time, and they should. I mean, the idea of, being able to be stalwart in the face of challenge, to keep going when one is tempted to give up, and all these aspects of resilience that we attribute to the term. The thing I really emphasize with the community and with all members in the community, families, parents, students, teachers, staff, is that resilience is not a trait. People make the assumption, I think, too many times, you either have it or you don't, kind of thing. And that's just not true. Resilience is something you acquire in the proper conditions, in the proper community, and it takes practice. It takes focus. You have to really emphasize it and put in place the things that you need to do to grow it. And for us, it's community. I write a lot about this. I think it's one of the biggest things I learned here and in my last job in Guatemala. And that is this idea of community. Again, another term people throw around a lot. I mean, what does it mean? How do you know you have it? What's a positive community? And for us, it really does start with trust in each other. And if there is trust between each other, and I'll give you an example of that. Another aspect of trauma, a consequence of it in an environment like this, is people might start to retreat and isolate. It's common. They start to pull back from friends. They pull back from peers. They want to spend more time alone, and that's fine. I mean, solitude is an important part of a healthy life. But the interesting thing about trauma, and this is research based, is that one of the antidotes to some of the more I guess, pernicious, outcomes of trauma. One of the antidotes is more, interaction. It's more connection, right? And so one of the things that we're really committed to here is that we have responsibility for each other, right? We have responsibility for each other, not only to self-regulate, but if, and being trained to look for those aspects of trauma in others. It can be things in staff like excessive drinking or a change in worldview. Again, isolation. Not doing things that you're a friend of this person, they like to exercise, they like to read, or they like, and you notice they're not doing those things anymore. It's this kind of mutual responsibility to kind of monitor each other for those things. And if we see these things in our community, we're a smallish staff. We have a total of 100 staff, including everyone, not just teachers. We were given our smallness, we were afforded this benefit that each individual in our community can be seen and understood as a person. Our highest priority always is if we start to see signs in an individual in our community, that the first signs of kind of rough edges, some of those aspects that I talked about earlier, we intervene, we take action on that. It's a very, very important part. We do commune a lot. We try to socialize. We try to make sure that no one's alone. I was walking in this morning, and a new teacher of ours, I was walking next to him and I said, "How are you?" And I put my arm on his shoulder. Sorry, that's our bell. You got to go with the season, right? Um, and he got tears in his eyes. And we're all getting ready for the holiday, getting ready to go back and see family. Those of us who are international, and he's got a daughter that's not here. She's 12 years old, and she's in Canada. And he said he's been having dreams about her, and we talked about those dreams. And I shared with him that I myself, I've got a son right now who's in Warsaw with his mother, and I have dreams of him. And just communing on this, that you're not alone, you're not the only one having that experience. It's impossible for me to articulate the importance of that and the power of that. I mean, clearly we have very robust psychological services in place for our staff, but it's the community and that resilience. Um, and you look at the community as a whole. I mean, the parents, to see them together, they know what we're trying to achieve here. And when I spend time with parents, they inspire me because they trust the school. Imagine being in a war zone, dropping your kids off first thing in the morning, and not seeing them again till 3:30 in the afternoon. And that means that whole day during a war, you're trusting a school to be a caretaker and a protector of the most precious thing in your life, right? And so I never fail to appreciate the sacred aspect of that, of parents looking to the school and believing in us and knowing that we're going to keep these young ones safe. Um, we rarely stop thinking about the fact that our ability to even be here as a school is due to the sacrifice of so many, not just yesterday, but today. This beautiful freedom that we have to come to school and do it in a way that is not under the iron boot of a dictator, an external dictator, is not free. And this is an image. We have a daily moment of silence for all those who we've lost in the war, fighting for that freedom. This image on the right, I, I get very emotional when I see this photo. This is a graduate of our school, um, and years ago, like not many years ago, but before the war started, he had graduated from the school. This young man went to university in the United States, and on graduation with his degree, decided to return to Ukraine and join the officer corps. And this is him visiting our school. And those little ones hugging him and thanking him for what he's doing. Yeah, that's real. That's real for us. Mm. Okay, so I've already talked about community, but we don't see parents, teachers, and staff as separate entities. Um, it's one group, and in that community, I've already talked to this. It's basically all of us have our weak moments. All of us need help. All of us need support. And when you are feeling strong, you give, and when you are needing support, you receive. And it's the culture of our community. Um, and it's this leaning in on that I've never seen anything like it. I can promise you in the years to come, I will look back and have many memories of my time here in Ukraine. But I have never witnessed anything as magical as the way this community has come together. I think of it this way: the external pressure on an object, but definitely on a community, can do one of two things, right? It can crack and create schism, or it can pressurize and consolidate. And that's what we're seeing here. And when we have events and the families come together and there's so much joy. There's so much joy. And I want to point this out about Ukrainians. This is my sixth country that I've worked in, and I never like to generalize that, Venezuelans are like this or Guatemalans are like that. But I will say this about Ukrainians. It's their history, two world wars, a Holocaust, a Holodomor, which killed 3 million people, like under Stalin, and a famine. And they've had revolution, living under Soviet rule. There's a stoicism to them, but that's not all. Right. There's a historical understanding of having to be resilient and having to be strong in the face of that adversity. But there's a joy in Ukrainians that I don't think I've ever really witnessed. Their most important way of pushing back against the attack on this country is to live their lives, whether it's celebration, whether it's a marriage, a birthday party, dancing, singing. It is it. I can't explain how just beautiful it really is to see them. That's their way of fighting back. Is not allowing the enemy to take that from them. Um, and the second image, that's our board of directors. And it's, again, I've been on boards, I've served boards, but there's something important that I should say about this group. They care so much about the school. There are a number of them whose kids are no longer in school, and yet they still volunteer on the board to support us. And I could go on about every age group in this school and the students. Um, they're the heroes. They are. And I say that because they don't have the benefit of years of life experience to tell them or show them tools to contend with what they're facing during this time. And yet they get up every day and they come in this school and they learn languages, they learn mathematics, and they practice for drama presentations, and they go to music, and they do all of that with so little sleep. And with the stresses, even a child this age who cannot possibly have any context, the historical context of what's happening. They just know it's loud, and their parents are scared and nervous, and yet they come in and they inspire. And this last area, which kind of brings Case back into it, um, we, this term advancement, you're all experts on that. It's such a comprehensive term, right? Advancement, yes, it's fundraising, but it's all about strategic growth, and it's all about knowing what you're trying to be, and being able to communicate that to those who are not part of your community. The thing that also happens to us easily here is that one can fall into a mindset of feeling isolated here in Ukraine. It takes a minimum of 13 to 15 hours just to leave the country from Kyiv. My trip to Warsaw, it's, many hours to the border. You got to get through the border and by train and then make it to Warsaw. And so that psychological aspect is like you feel like you're far away from everything because there's no flights in or out. And so one of the things that has such power for us is when we get connected to a partner entity, organization that really cares about us, that really, really cares about us and leans in on what we're doing here. It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring for us. It edifies, it fortifies, it's a buttress to us. Every time I get a chance like this to talk, like right now, I mean, my heart just talking to you guys is full because I'm feeling the connection that there are those out in the world that are learning about what we're doing here, and that is such a key part of withstanding all the challenges that come here, that come with being here. And so every time I have a chance to either travel to for a conference or or meet people elsewhere, I come back and I share it. I share it with everybody on staff. Like we have a staff meeting tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about this. I'm going to be talking about what I got to do today, and how I feel bad that they don't get to do it with me every time because it really it fills your battery back up, right? So we've got a number of organizations out there who love us, and they all are doing different things. I talk about Case, like obviously, we're working right now at a deficit and have since we started, the school again. The school shut down at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, moved for a year to Warsaw, and in 23, we came back to Kyiv and reopened. And we knew that we were going to be working at a deficit, and we have some reserves left over from the previous time. But we made the calculation that the meaning of the school being open far exceeded a dollar amount, or an accounting of just a pecuniary appreciation of what it would mean to open, because our being here, our being open, it just embodies everything that the Russians are not. An international mindset, empathy, norms and values, appreciation for the other, and just an approach to education that's about the full person. And that has power in and of itself. And as long as we're open, uh, that means something to this country. And the leaders that are going to come out of our school, given the demographic we serve, these are going to be your inventors. They're going to be your business owners. They're going to be your diplomats. And so I always say this to everybody. I say, well, what kind of leaders are they going to be? Are they going to base that future on a sense of hatred and anger and revenge, which one could understand? Or is it going to be a sense of empathy, understanding, and connection and forgiveness? And that's our goal. As you go through this list, some of these partners, some of it's been financial support, some of it's been strategic support. With the International Baccalaureate, I mean, it's such a key element to our academic and philosophy of education. AAIE is this consortium of organizations that come together in schools, and it's where like the craft of education itself is discussed and explored. Veracross is they are a platform entity that provides kind of the database that we use for our students and all their information. And now we're going to be leaning on those guys to add a module for our fundraising, essentially our donor tracking software. And they've supported us in that. So I could go on, but yeah, partnerships is such an important piece of what we're doing. Right. And again, I've mentioned a bit of this. 22, the invasion begins. And those of you who know the story, it was this close. It really was. I say that. The Russians got to within about 30 kilometers of the city, and the world assumed that the war was going to be over in a few days, right? But these people, everybody got together, soldiers, civilians, and they stood up and they fought back. And as we know how the story unfolded, the Russians eventually retreated and completely different than what people expected. They went to Warsaw, the school went to Warsaw, and in August 23, we returned. And so what we're all about now is what the future of this school is going to be. We started in 23 with 86 students. We ended last year with 135, and we are now at 187. And we added six new international kids as well, which is crazy to think about. A lot of our past international families would have been, for example, embassies, where the embassy workers would have had their families with them, and those kids would have attended our school. Well, 95% of the embassies are not allowing families back. So the international family community is much more atrophied than it was before. And yet the Ukrainian families that we are receiving into our school, many of them have had international experience. So, as we grow toward that moment of sustainability where we get to that number of students, roughly around 238, where we can quote unquote break even in terms of our expenses and revenue. It's not just about like counting heads, right? Like, oh, how many students do we have? It's what the students are receiving within the school. Are they healthy? Are they getting the psychological support they need? Are we helping the families to be as healthy as they can be? And are the kids driven? Are they excited about going to school? That's my biggest thing. I mean, and to be having parents tell me, "Oh, my kid loves going to school." I mean, you should see the smile that I get because having two sons, having your kids say they want to go to school, that's those parents on the call know what I'm talking about. So we have very high aspirations for the future. Um, we have many things we need to do. From a facility standpoint, our roof was perforated over time by drone debris. When drones are destroyed, that's a beautiful thing, but they tend to send out metallic debris that's hot and burning, and it lands on a roof. Over time, it can scorch it, and so we have to replace roof. Our playgrounds need help. One of the most important things about a child and their growth and their development is healthy play and learning through play. So we have so many aspirations for that, and we also feel that if we're going to create these leaders of the future, especially here in Ukraine, we have to be technologically savvy and technologically advanced in what we're providing these kids. And so we've got a new initiative. We're calling it PSI Brave Tech. Everything from STEM to robotics to design and a new computer science approach for the school. And so we have dreams. Oh, and really important, we had a scholarship program before, but we have augmented it. In the last 2 years, we transformed our scholarship program from just basically offering to those students who couldn't afford the school but had the academic and let's say character capacity to succeed at the school. We shifted it. Now we bring students into the school who we have lost a parent in the war. And that scholarship program, of the many things that I am so proud of that we've done, that there just embodies it all. That connection between the real suffering that is occurring in this country and our humble ability to make a difference. So you're a young lady who's lost your father at the front 2 years ago, and now you're at a school that cares for you, cares for your family, for your mom. And now you have an opportunity to get an education that's going to open doors to a future that is unthinkable and so much greater than it would have been before. So the scholarships, we're looking to raise money to have either committed and dedicated scholarships, or one could dedicate a scholarship to a student. The sustainability piece of our endeavors has to do with all those things I talked about that have to do with our buildings, our playgrounds, but also supporting getting international teachers here, excellent teachers. And I mentioned the PSI Brave Tech initiative as well. Okay. All right. Thank you for your patience as I've moved through these items and through, I hope, was some small kind of lens into what we're doing here and what we care about and how we're getting about making it, you know. But Tom, I'll stop there and see if there are any questions from the group.
Thank you so much, Trae. What an amazing, story that you've told there. Thank you for being so giving with, the information that you've shared. And I think so much learning for our community, in terms of how to react to such a challenging, you know, uh, context. So I'm interested if anyone has any questions, you're very welcome to raise your hand or put any questions into the chat. I suppose I'd love to start by just asking you, Trey, and Nikita and Olia. I suppose you mentioned future on the slides and kind of the next steps. Obviously, it's I imagine quite hard to predict longer term when the outcome of the war is still hard, hard to plan around. But I wondered, particularly from the perspective of kind of engaging your students, your alumni, and potentially kind of fundraising in future. Do you have a
Mhm.
sense of what the next steps hopefully are in the next few
Mhm.
years, and how you can, I mean, as you already have done, use this incredibly difficult period to kind of positively grow on a national level, but also in terms of the individual school community you're working with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, this is where Nikita and Oya come in. We've put together a tight little advancement team.
Mhm.
And we've been working really hard over the last 8 months to really get that case statement in place, start laying the groundwork for infrastructure. When Oya joined our team, she got after it immediately on terms of finishing the job, in terms of setting up, our donor tracking approach, our grant writing strategy. I credit Nikita. He worked with me so long on that case statement, and you saw more in our. I want to make sure that I took a moment to talk about Dave and Martine from Moore. They spent months with us. Really, I mean, I was a development director myself at a nonprofit in the States for a few years, but still, I mean, to have that level of expertise walking us through step one, step two, step three, step four, this is the things you need to be thinking about. And once we completed our draft, the case statement, having another, expert at Moore looking at our case statement, giving us feedback on that, critical work for us. But getting those fundamentals, as we all know, in place, the building blocks too, when one starts to do that outreach. And now looking at cultivation plans, identifying those initial targets, looking at our community. Olga's done a lot of work in terms of we've got a pretty robust community, many of them in the business community, and being able to take a look at that cohort and say which of those, and at our board members. Right. Those who, that old strategy, right? You start in the middle of the target and then you start moving out. And so we're kind of working on that inner circle Yeah, so we're basically kicking it off as we speak. Of course, I'll let Nikita add anything to that, and Oya as well. No pressure, Nikita, if you'd like to add. Yeah.
Ola, maybe you would like to add anything to Trae's points.
Hello to everyone. Yes, thanks to Trae for sharing our experience. You can see how resilient our whole team and how we try to do our best to provide the best education for the children in those challenging times. If to speak about fundraising and development, we are just beginning. They're developing our parents and alumni communities and to work with them more effective. You can understand that fundraising in Ukraine is not easy, as every family has been affected by war in some way. But we still plan to work actively in this direction. We are very open to learn from the experience of other schools, and as it was already mentioned, communities are very important, and we are glad to be part of such great communities where we can exchange experience with other schools, other organizations, because such inspiring meetings also very important and helpful to us.
Yeah.
And yes, Trae has mentioned some our fundraising priorities. They're very, like, some of them are very important and really critical, such as building additional shelter, like bunker for children, to continue their like learning process during all those periods. And like another, which I consider also very, very important, is support mental health of our team. Actually, there are many like
Yeah.
important projects, and
Exactly.
each of them is important, and we can talk a lot about each of them.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Olia. Pamela, should we go to you for a question?
I believe she's on mute.
Oh,
Sorry, my Zoom wouldn't undo itself there. Hello. Just to echo Tom's points at the start, just thank you so much for that incredibly moving story. Makes me feel, I don't know, sitting in my privileged place in London. I can't quite imagine what you have all been going through, but you really brought that to life for us. One thing that really struck me in your presentation was when you were describing the kind of resilience and community that you've been really focusing on, that kind of individual support and really, focusing on, what everyone individually is going through and creating that open, supportive environment is something I think all schools really want to create. You've had to create it very quickly in such a difficult circumstance, but what you were describing feels like what every school would really love to have. We hear a lot in the UK about, students struggling with mental health or the impact of the pandemic. And I'm just thinking about maybe some tips you can share with schools worldwide, that things that have worked that they could perhaps introduce, that you've been forced to in the circumstances you're in, that would be really good learning experience for everybody.
Such a good point. My first job I had in my 20s teaching at a school for at-risk kids in North Carolina. These were teenage moms, kids that had been in prison, and I don't know, it was almost like out of the gate, I realized, the idea of psychosocial health and awareness of the professionals working with students, being versed in these things. But you said it better than I did. I mean, basically, this idea that every school has trauma, every single one has it. And even in the richest, most elite schools, this kid is being abused. This kid has a drug problem. This kid, is going. Their parents are going through a divorce. Trauma is happening everywhere, and so I really do take the position that the idea of trauma-informed practice in schools, these things are a difference in degree, not substance. And every time I go to any kind of educational conclave, a conference, if you will, I mean, this idea of trauma is coming up. It's coming up more and more and more. And I do feel that we are hook and crook, and by experience, we are arriving at some real epiphanies here. about how to approach this stuff. And AAIE they have a conference in February that I'm going to present and do a workshop on this stuff. So I'm with you. I feel like, and I say this with all modesty, that if I and we, can impart the smallest bit of experience and knowledge to others that can take that and grow it themselves and move it in a different direction. I think that is one of the benefits that could come out of all this, frankly. Yeah.
Thanks, Trae, and great question, Pamela. Um,
Yeah.
I'll just pause if there's anyone else that either wants to come off mute or put a question in the chat. Um, for Trae, Nikita, and Olia. Yes, Pamela, back to you.
Sorry, I don't want to dominate.
Hey, Pamela, I had students like you. Bring it. Let's go.
It wasn't like this in school, but I'm just interested, and I'm sorry, you might have mentioned this, like my audio went funny halfway through, but given you're an international school and you therefore have alumni around the world, I was interested in how your alumni community kind of have responded during the conflict and whether they've been offering support.
I'm going to hand that off to Nikita. He's been taking point and has been for quite a long time on making sure that the alumni community is connected even before the war. But Nikita, please, man, let's talk about that. That's a great question.
Hi, Pamela. Nice to see you on the screen. Uh, the alumni community is quite vibrant and dynamic. They've been reaching out and, in fact, traveling even more often back to Kyiv, to Ukraine. They've been visiting the school. Just as you have seen the photo of one of our alums who is serving, there are people that are just coming because they miss being with us. We are going to host this year our very first reunion since 2019, which seems to be ages ago, given COVID and the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We have quite a high turnout. 30 people are already coming to see us, and it's just students who, at some extent, be part of the school. They're all caring human beings. They've been all reaching out. We can't say that they've provided some of those resources that we need for sure, because they don't have this capability, but their warmth, energy, and love that they spread through a letter, through a visit, through a surprise appearance as well, because some of them just appear like in a regular daily life, oh, here I am, I would like to see the school.
Yeah.
That all brings so much value to people in Kyiv, to team. We have quite a few team members that have been with us since very first days. We have founding teachers that are still with us. So it all seems to be natural. Of course, not without work. We do have emails. We do have some opportunities for them to be part of our community during events. But yeah, we really look forward to this first reunion in London.
Great. Thanks,
Oh
Nikita.
gosh, I can hear kids screaming at the top of their lungs, like in a happy way, right down the hallway. And I'm like, I think they're in music class and they're coming out, or in drama class. I just wanted to share that with you. That's beautiful. Okay, so there is joy, there is celebration here. So that's cool. That's what we're doing this. Just to
Absolutely.
hear kids scream like that.
I love that, Trae. That's yeah, definitely gives you the encouragement to kind of keep us and I think that probably summarizes the focus on resilience really nicely. That it's it's sometimes I think people's reaction to resilience is about kind of powering through the struggle, and there's almost kind of a bit of a negative focus. But I think I really love how you've all kind of reframed resilience to the best type of resilience is that focus on warmth and laughter and connection and continuity. I love what you said about the starting a story and then continuing it when you go into the shelter. That whole I think it's so so powerful. I think it's an amazing example, Trae, and I think our community will be very inspired by your experiences and your learnings. And I wanted to check before we wrap up. Are people able to contact the three of you by
Yes,
email if they've got questions?
absolutely.
Or yeah,
Please, please. Like I said, I'm going to send you an email about our dates in London. But Tom, please feel free to hand out my email, Olia's email, Nikita's email to anybody in the case community. Heck, I'll do this again. If you want to come together on other topics, I mean, I know you guys are busy, but I just want you to know, Tom, I got more out of this than I think you guys did. So it means the world to me. Please feel free to give our contacts to anybody who has questions later, wants to have a deeper conversation about anything. We're here.
Yeah, fantastic. We will definitely make sure that's shared around. Well, thank you so much, Trae, Nikita, and Olio. Such a powerful example. And yeah, I think there are lots of people on this call and who will watch the recording back who will be incredibly inspired by what you've achieved.
Yeah, and guys, all the best to you as a team, as an organization. I think you guys are amazing, frankly, and I just want you to keep at it. And you're doing good stuff. Let me just put it that way.
Thank you, Trae. Sorry, I just got the light went just as I was doing that. But just before I wrap up, I just wanted to quickly share the our other webinars that we've got coming up for anyone that is keen to join more of these fantastic webinars. You've got the QR code for each one appearing as it shows up, but I'll just quickly talk you through. So tomorrow we have a really interesting session from Bruno, who is one of our cabinet members in the Netherlands, talking about the transformative alumni career days that he's been running for alumni and funders at Erasmus. When we're back from the holiday break, we've got two of our school members in Switzerland and Belgium talking about some of the brilliant work they've been doing in fundraising and alumni engagement at schools and what that can teach other institutions about kind of how to adapt and be effective. The day after that, we've got two members in Bristol and in Munster and Ireland talking about some of their alumni success stories, some really impressive marketing campaigns that they've been using and awards that they've been running to draw attention to fantastic alumni engagement in their institutions. And then in February, we've got two members, one in Barcelona and one in London, talking all about some of the events that they have run internationally. We've heard a bit of a mention about reunions here. We're going to be looking at reunions and other ways to engage global alumni and the diaspora of their institutions. And then finally, another kind of marketing focused session with Bristol and the American International School of Budapest, sharing some really interesting ways that they've approached storytelling involving podcasts, involving really creative filming campaigns. So another one that I would really recommend attending if you can. And all of those webinars are free to all members and take place on Zoom. So that is everything I was going to cover. So I can see lots of lovely messages in the chat encouraging you all for such a fantastic session. We'll send round the recording to everyone. It'll be available on your learning platform when you go into the registration link. But yeah, just want to finish by wishing everyone a lovely holiday break. And again, a huge thank you, Trae, Nikita and Olio, for being so giving with your incredible story today. What a way to end our year of webinars.
Oh, wow. Thank you. It was an honor for us all. And we really appreciate you giving us this opportunity. And I join you, Tom, in saying best to you all for your holiday and may be filled with peace and joy and rest.
That's the aim. Great. Thanks, Trae, and thanks, everyone. Have a lovely break, and we look forward to seeing you next year.